United Nations recommends that every country allocates 26% of its annual budget to education. Nigeria has not hit this target, as the recent budget shows that for 2018, the budget is at 8.621 trillion naira. Education has 605.8 billion naira, which is just about 7%. Now, for 2017, budget was at 7.444 trillion naira. Education had 550 billion naira, still about 7%. And for 2016, the budget was about 6 trillion naira. Education had 369.6 billion naira, which is about 6%. Now, could this be the basis for some issues which have been noticed in the sector? Issues like a drop in the quality of teachers and the products from schools, insufficient infrastructure, and the latest, which is increase in out-of-school children. Well, let's look at these issues as it concerns the primary and secondary levels of education in Nigeria on this episode of Big Story. You're welcome. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Education in Nigeria has the active participation of both the public and the private sectors. The general structure has primary, secondary, as well as post-secondary educational institutions such as universities, colleges, and technical schools. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, there were 61,305 public primary schools in Nigeria in 2013. This increased to 62,406 in 2014. Enrollment went from almost 13 million girls and 11 million boys, which makes up to 24 million children enrolled in 2013, to 12 million girls and almost 11 million boys in 2014. A drop of almost 1 million in the enrollment into public primary schools. For secondary level, public junior secondary enrollment was about 4.3 million students in 11,561 schools in 2013, which increased to about 4.4 million enrollment in 11,874 schools in 2014. Lagos State is one of those claiming a large portion of this increase.
I will take a look into this, comparing registration within 2016 academic session and 2017-18 academic session. In our public primary schools in Lagos State, we have three categories of children. We have, for ECCD, children in the developmental stage, what they call the nursery section in private schools. We have that. We call it ECCD in our own schools. We have the primary classes, that is between primary 1 to primary 6. Within the 2016-17 academic session, we recorded 64,102 for children in the ECCD class. Whereas for children between primary 1 to 6, we had 48,179 pupils. Now coming to 2017-18 academic session, by the number, the population, you would see the increase we have been able to record. And the reason for all this increase, again, is as a result of the quality, of teachers that are in our public primary schools. The irregular provision of infrastructural facilities that will promote quality teaching and learning. At occasions, the leadership of the Association of Private Primary Schools have admitted that, yes, a lot of their children have drifted into our public primary schools.
Mrs. Abolaji Osime is an educationist who runs a private school but has had dealings with the government at various times. She totally disagrees with the notion that the public schools are doing as well as they should.
The reverse is the case, because I had the opportunity to work with DFID a couple of years ago, and I was the team ESPN leader in Lagos State. So I actually asked them when I was there. DFID is the British government intervention that intervenes in Nigeria, and they were intervening in Lagos State in public education. And I said to them, I want you guys to do a census. If you do a census, you realize that most of the education provided in Lagos State is by private sector. So they took that on board, and they found out today we have 18,000 private sector schools, private sector providing education in Lagos State, as opposed to 1,600 public schools. And the private sector schools are providing education for 1.4 million students, as opposed to about 1 million, just slightly over a million, that the public sector. So certainly the private sector is providing education in Lagos State. And I do believe that in more other states as well, quite a few states in the South, it's the same thing. So I was, in 2007, 2008, I was a consultant with Dr. Ezekwesili, looking at the federal, we rolled out the federal reforms. So I was able to see education on a federal scale and actually look at what's happening in a lot of public schools, because it was about the public schools there. So because of that, I got a lot of data of what was happening in public schools. Now, coming down to Lagos State as well, I was able to access a lot of data, having worked with them because I was the head of ESPN. So I know that when I compare what the private sector is doing, we have the APEN schools, which is the Association of Private Educators. We meet all the time. And when you go to the schools and you see the quality of provision, it cannot be compared. The quality of the output also cannot be compared. In every country, you focus on the child. You really don't say, I'm private, I'm public. Though we realize that a majority of, in every nation really, majority of the children from maybe the lower income will go to the government schools. But at the end of the day, our focus should be on the Nigerian child. So when we are focusing on the Nigerian child, we now say that we are interested in intervening in both the public sector and the private sector as well. We want to make sure we provide high quality education. And the importance of the private sector is that we set the bar very high. And we look at public sector schools, looking at what we're doing and trying to provide the same education, because we're talking about the same Nigerian child. They must have access to the same kind of quality of education.
Now, from what you have on the board, apart from definition of a